In 2010, disillusioned screenwriter Gil Pender went on a Paris trip with his fiancée, Inez, and her affluent parents. Inez dismisses Gil's dreams to go to Paris, citing his artistic history, particularly that of the lost generation of the 1920s, while he struggles to finish his debut novel about a man who works in a nostalgia shop. They happen to run into Paul and Carol, Inez's buddy. Paul annoys Gil but impresses Inez as he speaks about French history with a great deal of authority but dubious veracity. After a long night of wine tasting, Gil is so drunk that he chooses to walk back to their hotel, while Inez takes Paul and Carol to their taxi. At midnight, Gil is driven by an automobile from the 1920s to a celebration for Jean Cocteau, which is being attended by other members of the Parisian art scene of the same era. Bored, Zelda Fitzgerald invites Gil and her husband Scott to go with her. They go to a cafe where they meet Juan Belmonte and Ernest Hemingway. Gil and Hemingway talk about writing after Zelda and Scott go, and Hemingway offers to show Gil's manuscript to Gertrude Stein. Gil returns to 2010 and finds that the cafe has changed into a laundromat as he leaves to get his manuscript. Gil tries to have the same conversation with Inez the following evening, but she leaves before midnight. Going back to the 1920s, Gil goes with Hemingway to see Gertrude Stein, who offers criticism on Pablo Picasso's most recent picture of Adriana, his lover. Adriana, a costume designer who also had relationships with Amedeo Modigliani and Georges Braque, draws Gil in. After reading the opening sentence of Gil's book, Adriana commends it and acknowledges that she has always yearned for the past. The next few evenings, Gil keeps traveling through time. As Gil and Paris continue to vanish, Inez becomes disillusioned with them, and her father becomes suspicious and employs a private investigator to pursue them. After Adriana left Picasso, she stays close to Gil, who is torn between his feelings for her. When Gil describes his predicament to surrealists Luis Buñuel, Man Ray, and Salvador Dali, they don't doubt his assertion that he is from the future. Later on, Gil recommends to Buñuel the storyline of The Exterminating Angel. Gil meets Gabrielle, an antique dealer and fellow Lost Generation fan, while Inez and her parents are visiting Mont Saint-Michel. Later, at a book booth, he discovers Adriana's diary, in which she confesses her love for Gil and her desire of receiving earrings before making love to him. Gil tries to take Inez's earrings in order to entice Adriana, but she gets back to the hotel room early. Gil goes back in time and purchases new earrings. A horse-drawn carriage pulls up after he gives Adriana the earrings, taking her to the Belle Époque, which Adriana views as Paris's golden age. They visit the Moulin Rouge and meet Edgar Degas, Paul Gauguin, and Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, who all concur that the Renaissance was Paris's greatest period. When Adriana receives an offer to work creating ballet costumes, she is ecstatic and suggests to Gil that they stay together. However, Gil notices Adriana's and the other artists' discontent and concludes that striving for nostalgia is pointless because the present is always a little unsatisfying. After Adriana chooses to stay, they separate ways. After rewriting the first 2 chapters of his book, Gil gives his draft to Stein, who gives it high marks for the revision but remarks that after reading the new material, Hemingway did not think the protagonist, who is based on Inez, did not know that his fiancée, who is based on Paul, was having an affair. When Gil goes back to 2010 and confronts Inez, she acknowledges that she slept with Paul but writes it off as a fleeting liaison. Gil decides to move to Paris after breaking up with her. Just before a revolution breaks out, the detective who is trailing him makes a wrong turn and finds himself being pursued by Louis XVI's palace guards. Gil meets Gabrielle at midnight while strolling by the Seine. They discover they have a mutual affection for Paris in the rain when he offers to walk her home as it starts to rain.